the Reforge Recap, where we talk about the week's gaming news with my good friend 30 and Still Gaming. His name should be clickable below in the description, so be sure to check out his channel, talk shows, and content as well. Every Friday, our second show, we kind of recap everything from the week, and we have a lot to talk about with respect to Starfield. There was leaked gameplay. They showed footage at Gamescom. They have wraps for your Xbox, and they announced some new features for the game, like New Game Plus. There's also been a lot of discussion surrounding the Series S, parity, and Baldur's Gate 3, and then Gamescom, just thoughts in general. I'm going to end the previous stream. If you want to see my thoughts about the parity clause getting dropped for Baldur's Gate 3, I viewed it as damage control because of an interview with Phil Spencer, where he essentially made it sound like it was Larian's fault. So be sure to check out that opening monologue. It was about 30 minutes long, and I believe it's well worth watching. We will be gifting members throughout the stream as well that I owe you for. If you guys want to push the number, it is down in the corner. So, Mike, this was an interesting week because I felt like Xbox was really winning. They were doing a great job. I felt like even the leaked footage of Starfield was going well for them. And that's why I want to start there, because obviously the situation with Baldur's Gate 3 and Larian is good and bad.
They were winning. What happened? You said...
I feel like ending on the note that they ended with Larian is not as celebratory as people are making it.
I got you.
Personally, that's how I see it. Obviously, people might see it differently, but the interview with Phil Spencer and all that, which we're going to get to and discuss in a moment, I did not find that to be a good look for Xbox or a good look for the platform. There's been a lot of talk about the Series S is not the problem, and now we're looking at a very, very different situation. But before we get to that, I really want to talk about Starfield, because I do think that's more exciting for me personally, and just more important in the gaming world anyways. So first, I want to get your thoughts on the leaked footage, because that was kind of how the week kicked off. This guy gets his collector's edition early, sets up a vertical phone. I don't know why he recorded it vertically. He has actually since been arrested. He was stealing copies from a warehouse to sell, and thought bragging about that on the internet was a good idea, and so he's been arrested for theft. He wasn't arrested for like breaking street date or anything. Like, they're gonna come for you if you break street date. But he got his collector's edition early. Well, it probably wasn't his. He probably stole that as well. And apparently his account has been banned by Microsoft. And he had about a 40-minute video. I got to watch it before it was taken down. It's obviously floating around other places. Did you get a chance to see the footage?
I didn't, but I watched you the day you were talking. Like, I watched it after the fact of you talking about the footage. So, but I didn't see it myself.
Okay. In the realm of leaked footage like this, where there was good, there was bad, there was people saying it was terrible, there was people saying they canceled their pre-orders, do you think that this type of a situation helps or hurts the game in anticipation of the launch? Obviously, reviews are going to hit next week on the 31st, so this is like, a week and a half before that.
I think at this stage, if you are hyped about the game, you're still hyped about the game. And if you're a person that was not hyped about the game, you're probably if you watch that footage. So, okay, let me reword it. If you're a person that loved the game and you saw the leaked footage, you're probably more hyped than ever, right? And if you're a person that saw the leaked footage and you hated the game going into it, this probably sold you even more that you're going to hate it, right? Like, I think that's the way it is. I think people right now, I don't think there's a lot of people. I'm talking about the initial $100. People are buying it the 5 days early. Those people, they were going to buy that game regardless with all the information they already got with the 45-minute presentation over the summer. So I think those people are in. I don't think right now the people are on the fence going, I don't know if I should buy this for $100. Like, they're like, I'm buying it for $100.
Right.
The rest of the people are like, I don't know if I want to buy it when it comes out on the 6th, right? And then now they're debating, well, I don't have to buy it. Maybe I'll just get Game Pass for the month, right?
Yeah, for me personally, I've been branded as a Starfield hater and an Xbox hater. I actually saw more good than bad in the leaked footage. Now, obviously, I had concerns about. I felt like the FOV was a little bit shallow and zoomed in. Like, if you can't, 80 FOV is what some people were speculating. That sounds about right to me. I know the original Destiny was at like an 75 or an 80. And then the first time I could play on like a PC and increase FOV in Destiny, it was like a different experience. You felt faster. I remember running around with like a third person, one of the roaming supers. I was like, oh my gosh, like it just felt like a different game.
I was going real quick. When you saw the footage, when you said leaked footage and you clicked on it, what were you looking for? Like, because obviously you already know a lot of footage. So what were you looking for? Yeah.
I was actually, and that's a great question. I was looking for any major differences between the Starfield Direct and what released. Did anything go up in appearance, performance, or sharpness? Because there was a bit of a downgrade from their first showing to the Direct, specifically with like the characters, their faces, skin texture. They toned some of that down. Now, some of that, I think they muted the color palette and went for a more rugged, dirty art style, which I'm fine with. I love that in The Mandalorian. I loved that in Andor, which is why the prequels are too clean and crisp, right? I think having space stories feel a little bit more gritty and dirty.
Yeah, it's like lived in.
Yes,
it feels,
yes. So I actually appreciated some of the differences between the original Starfield footage and the Starfield Direct, but it is noticeable that there was a downgrade in the faces. So I'm thinking, okay, when I look at this leaked footage, I want to see if there's any notable differences. Now it's difficult because it's a cell phone and it's vertical and it's, oh my gosh. Yeah. So after I realized it was a cell phone, I was like, well, okay, what happens in the first 40 minutes of the game? Now I'm just more curious, like how do they open this game up? How do they set the stage? And
was it 40 minutes? Was it 40 minutes of footage?
Yeah. Yeah.
God,
yeah.
Okay. Vertically.
Yes. Yeah.
You should punch that dude in the face.
Yeah. It's like one of your older relatives puts a video on Facebook and they're like, watch this, Michael. And you're like, oh, right. That's what it felt like. Yeah. That's what it felt like. And I think it was like the first time he had ever touched a controller because it was... he apparently he's not a gamer, so in jail for notoriety.
He's also not a good crook either. He's also not a good crook. He's just failing at all levels.
I wasn't ready for that. That one got me. That's pretty funny. He's a bad crook. He's a bad thief. Anyways, so yeah, it was 40 minutes. It was 40 minutes, and once I realized that, the quality of the footage wasn't going to be that good, I was like, well, I mean, the graphics looked to me in line with what we saw during the Starfield Direct. That's why I didn't understand people being like, I'm canceling my pre-order. This game looks like trash. I'm like, what do you mean? It looks like what we saw at the Starfield Direct. It's not like a different game, right? The things that I found promising was character creator. I'm telling you, RPG fans are going to spend an hour in the character creator. They will. It's very, very cool, very elaborate. The replay value is massive here. It really is. You can have a completely different experience. You can go from being Han Solo to Captain Kirk and actually like live out those types of, RPG fantasies and stories. And so then I was interested in what did people think. Right? Because I'm always like, well, what's the fallout from this going to be? And this is where I have found Starfield to be a very interesting game. It's a 10 automatically in some people's minds. Right. And it's like a 4 in others.
Sure.
Where do you land on that discussion as a gamer? You're going to be checking out this game. I don't know how anybody couldn't check out this game. What's the polarization and like the tribalism due to your experience and your mindset about a game like this?
I am 45 years old and I don't give two craps what other people say, right? I am set in my ways. I know what games I like. I know that I liked Oblivion and Morrowind and Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 and Skyrim. And yes, I even enjoyed myself with Fallout 76 when I played the game, right? I think this game's going to come out and it's going to be a good experience as far as what Bethesda gives for stories and stuff. Now, is there going to be bugs? Yes, there's always bugs. I mean, there's bugs in Baldur's Gate 3, right? But people that have more pros than cons don't bring them up because it's not taking away from the experience that's happening in Baldur's Gate or any other game that's out there. Like, what's it called? Witcher 3 when it came out. It was literally called Glitcher 3, right? Because it was so many glitches and bugs when it launched, and then they fixed them, right? I mean, that's what it was. So there's tendency of these things are these these features, as we say, Bethesda features that are going to happen. And Pete Hines, in an interview yesterday, said at the very end, he goes, you could do whatever you want in this game. And he said the word, and you can also test. Now, when he said that, I cringed a little bit, because when you say test, it's like they haven't completed the game, right? But he said before that, in context, he said the game is so big, so huge. He's like, it's almost what did he say?
Irresponsibly large.
Yeah, irresponsibly large, right? And then he later in the interview, he said that, go out and test. And I was just like, he's right. They probably really focused on the story element of the stuff, and it's going to be a really good experience for that. But then there's going to be things that they couldn't get to or are still getting to, and they're going to fix it because they just didn't think that someone was going to go around and steal all the sandwiches, or go around and just, as he said in his interview, just stay in space and something could happen. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things out there that potentially could go wrong and you fall through the map or whatnot. But if there's more pros than cons, I look at this and I think it's going to be the highest rated Bethesda game, which right now I think is 94 for Fallout 4, I think it was. And I think this will get better than that, right? And I say it'll be around, I think it'll get like 9s. I think it'll get 9s across the board, if not 10s, you know what I mean, from most of the outlets. But I don't really care about those people. I think the Metacritic and stuff will give it the highest. I don't know if it'll be Baldur's Gate 3, but I think it'll be the highest rated Bethesda game that Bethesda's come out with.
That is a bold prediction to say it's going to be the highest, because that's a big leap for them to make. Baldur's Gate certainly currently at a 96, and I believe Tears of the Kingdom is also at 96.
What's Skyrim and what's Fallout 4? I thought Fallout 4 beat Skyrim for some reason.
Skyrim Metacritic, I actually haven't checked that one in a really long time. Thank you so much, Borbs and Assumed Parasite, for those gifted members. You guys are insane. Skyrim's currently at a 94 on PC.
Okay.
That's a really hard score to beat. You think Fallout 4 is higher?
I think Fallout 4 was a 94 or 95, I think.
Fallout 4 is currently at an 84, 87, and an 88. So you had it backwards. Yeah, Skyrim's the higher one.
Okay, so it's Skyrim. Okay.
Yeah, you just flipped it. I was going to say, I would have been surprised if Fallout was higher than Skyrim. My gosh, Skyrim's like
I knew it was something, but I knew there was a 94. I just didn't know what game it was. So I think it'll be the 94. It'll be a 95.
I think that is, at some level, virtually impossible because of the expectations and the scrutiny. And this is not just a Bethesda game this year. It's an Xbox game. It's a flagship. It's a it's a banner carrier, and I think that's going to work against it. So when I say, it's not going to score higher than Skyrim, I actually think this game is probably in some respects going to be more enjoyable and fun and longer lasting for me than Skyrim was. So I'm not saying that's indicative of its quality. I think it's too difficult to do that now. I think it's incredibly difficult to get a score that high. That's not me saying Starfield can't do it. I don't think think the scrutiny will allow for it. It's like, I don't think Starfield is going to get a fair shake, to be quite honest. I think many people are going to judge this thing a little bit harsher and a little bit more scrutinous than in the past Bethesda games, because number one, I think the bar is higher. I think the games this year have been nuts. I think gaming in general has come a long way. Number two, I think the minute you are attached to a brand and sort of a side of the aisle, I just think that complicates things. I wish that wasn't the case, but it definitely seems like that's the case. So your prediction is one I think is going to be really tough to see come to fruition.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it's going to be over a 90, but I still think it's going to be the best game that they've come out with so far.
Right. Well, Corey's saying the criticism is not going to be because it's a Microsoft game, but because it's a Bethesda game, and it's been a long time cooking. To act like there won't be extra criticism because it's a Microsoft game, I think that's a tiny bit naive. I think there will be outlets that are a little bit harsher purely because it's a Microsoft game. Just like there are outlets that are harsher with PlayStation games. Like that's a reality right now. Come on. It's not fair, it's not right. It's the world we live in, okay? So you got to eat around that fat, right? Xbox era gave a high score to Redfall and then gave Armored Core a 6.5. Like, that's just going to happen. You're going to see outlets lean toward Xbox or lean towards PlayStation, and that will affect scores in the end.
this is why I'm comparing Bethesda games against Bethesda games and not up against like Baldur's Gate 3 and stuff like that. Like I just think that what they've proven, besides Fallout 76, which wasn't the main studio, they had people in the studio that helped out with it. But this is their main game that they've, since the last game they worked on, which was Fallout 4, right? So this is a big one, and I think they can do it. I think they can do it. And from what I've seen and what people are saying behind the scenes and whatnot, it sounds like it's going to be. So
in my estimation, if it lands in the high 80s, I will be extremely satisfied. I'll say, wow, that's a heck of a score, because I think it stands in the shadow of Skyrim a little bit, and I think that's a tough shadow to stand beneath. I think Armored Core, to some degree, not as much, but I think Armored Core stood a little bit beneath the shadow of Elden Ring. And Lords of the Fallen will stand underneath that shadow a teeny bit as well when it comes out in a couple of months. So, yeah, I think Starfield will, I think it'll score well from everything we're hearing from the people that are already kind of like, they're so giddy, they're squealing, like, oh, I can't. What do you think of the people that are breaking NDA, that got review copies and are just out here brazenly talking about this game? I was shocked how many people were doing that.
I think, and this is going to sound harsh, I think every single one of them should get disciplined in some way, shape, or form. If it's in the future where they don't get codes from, I don't even say Bethesda, by Microsoft themselves.
Right.
They just pull it and say, sorry, we trusted you. You signed an NDA and you just said, screw it. So, there's reasons why there's NDAs, and I understand like people want to get that 15 minutes of fame and put something out there and get hit. But once you do that, you're like a used tissue, right? People see your post, they blow your nose with you, they get the information from you, and then everyone else also thinks it's okay. Like yesterday, I was scared, right, to show they showed the Millennium Falcon like picture, right? And I was like, I don't know if I could show this. I was like, I didn't sign an NDA, right? It was on Twitter, and I was like, it's public, and they haven't pulled it down. So I was like, let me show it on screen, right? But because maybe I come from that background of signing NDAs and stuff like that for the film industry and whatnot, I'm more respectful when I sign something like for Wayfinder and other games before. I signed an NDA. People are like, how's Wayfinder? I'm like, I could tell you I had fun. That's about it, right? I can't tell you anything because I respect what I signed, and there has to be that. And if you're a person that breaks NDA, then you're a person that shouldn't ever sign another NDA, because you should be literally banned from that segment because no one can trust you. So,
well, I looked at it from another way of all the people that are abiding by the rules right now and they're not breaking NDA. That's got to be pretty frustrating. Like if you're a big YouTuber or you're a big journalist or outlet or something, and you're watching these guys break NDA, it's like, hey man, you're breaking the seal early. Like you're hurting everybody. You're hurting the videos and the articles that people right now are working really hard on. It's like that's where I came from it at. It's like, you're really abusing a special privilege, and these guys that are abiding by the rules and they're being super chill, they're like, hey, I'm not allowed to say anything. It's like I kind of feel bad for them. It's like they're following the rules, So if there were a couple of people from Bethesda that spoke out about it, and I would hazard a guess that the people that broke NDA won't be getting codes anytime in the future, not just from Bethesda. I think other companies will look, they'll look at you and say, no way. Yeah, no way.
I personally think they should be able to go, this person's broke it, and then industry-wide, you get blacklisted, and you won't get codes from anybody. And then because you wanted 15 minutes of fame, you now get nothing, right?
I wonder if they could start baking it into the contract that if you break NDA, that you agree that they reserve the right to have your video taken down or request the video to be taken down. Because then that really incentivizes people to not break the rules. It's like, well, if I break the rules, if I put a video out, they can take it down. Like, you would agree to that in the contract. I would wonder if companies would start to do that. It's like, okay, sure, you're going to burn the bridge with us because another Bethesda game's not going to come out for 5 or 6 years, so I'm going to capitalize on the hype of Starfield. Well, no. Right? We reserve the right to take your video down. People are asking who broke NDA. Listen, I'm not naming names. I saw there was a guy in a Discord blatantly breaking NDA, and there were people posting screenshots. There were people putting footage up. There were people breaking NDA pretty brazenly. Like, I don't know if any major YouTubers or people were doing it. These tended to be, well, no, the one guy I think was pretty well known, which is why a lot of people were shocked that he did it. I think maybe he thought, oh, I'm safe. I'm in a Discord, like I'm in my Discord. People screenshotted it and put it on Twitter. So I thought that was interesting. Now, the footage coming out of Gamescom, have you seen that? That's also making the rounds on Twitter. The Starfield did their theater presentation, and they showed like a 20-minute teaser of the opening of the game. Did you get a chance to see that?
Didn't watch that either.
Okay. The response to that, similarly to the leaked footage, it's somebody with a cell phone like recording the footage. And it's literally just the beginning of the game. So the beginning of the game, no spoilers. I'm not going to spoil the game. You start out with like
space.
I don't want to spoil the game, but yes, there's some space. You know,
like all right.
Yeah, There's a
people?
I saw
people in there
I saw a
well?
couple of stars and planets, just a couple.
Ooh.
Yeah. Anyway, the thing about it, I think that some people are going to take issue with is it does seem like a slow start, but I actually think that's what it should be because of the game type. You know, the classic, hey, you're awake. It's that. It's Bethesda. It's so Bethesda. And I think there's a Bethesda charm to having a game start out that way. You know, everybody's just kind of talking to you and like, here, take this, do this, you know.
It's a tutorial. It's a tutorial. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's totally fine. You know, people are talking about like, I fell asleep. It's so boring. It's so slow. It's like you do understand this is an RPG with hundreds of thousands of planets and 250,000 dialogue lines. This is not going to be like a high octane action adventure game that you're done with in 10 hours. Okay, like this is going to be. It's a bit of a slow burn, and it should be. I think that's a way to really respect the work that they've done. They've put a lot of work into the skill trees and into the way the game sort of progresses. You got to start slow. I think somebody was quoted as saying the game doesn't really start until you finish the main storyline.
Yeah, after the main campaign.
What do you think about that? What do you think of that's a tall order, I think.
That on one hand, as a gamer, I love to hear that because that's just, to me, I'm like, oh my God, like the game ends and then it opens up even more. To me, that's fantasy. In your head, you're just like, it just continues going. It'll never end. But as a person that, I don't know, if I gave the controller to my wife, who's not a gamer, I'm like, here, try this. She'd be like, this is so overwhelming. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like, and you just have to do this for another 70 hours, and then the game opens up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, just a little bit of time.
Just got to invest a little bit of time. I think that's really overwhelming. I think what's going to happen is, not per se to the people that are buying it early 1 week, but I think a lot of people that are either buy the standard edition on day one when it actually comes out, or try it on Game Pass, I think you're going to have a massive drop off. I mean, obviously they're going to try it, and they're like, oh, okay, what's happening here? This is pretty They're like, wait, I have to make a character for 30 minutes? They might be confused or whatnot. And then when you go into space, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm confused. I don't understand what's happening. They might be shunned away, but at the same time, Xbox is okay with that. Microsoft is okay with that because they can always come back and continue it later, right? Pete Hines said it's not a game that you're going to complete and be done. They want this game to play for years, right? He said just this section of the game is like 1,000 hours. Yeah. So I think a lot of people are going to get overwhelmed, just like they get overwhelmed in an Assassin's Creed game, just like they get overwhelmed in any kind of open world-esque type of game like that, No Man's Sky. People are just like, that's too much. They need their handheld. They need to know a little bit what's going on. And again, we don't know yet. We don't know how they incentivize you to push you towards the main campaign or push you to go try something else in the game.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't push you at all. Maybe they let you do what you want, like Pete Hines said. So I think there is going to be a drop off, but I love it as a gamer. This is the perfect game, and we talked about it last week, where people will start their careers on YouTube making content with this game, right? So,
well, they did confirm New Game Plus, and we're hearing that they're going to have their own unique twist on it. Like there's an exciting twist in how it's going to play out. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of like specificity to what that is. They say, Starfield's choice system gives you the flexibility and options to carve out a unique identity, and even adds a unique and exciting twist on New Game Plus to incentivize continued and repeat play. Now, it's according to Insider Gaming and other outlets, it is not yet known what that means, okay?
Right.
But they are taking replayability New Game Plus in mind. Now, I don't expect New Game Plus at launch. A lot of people were trying to argue the other day or yesterday. They said, well, God of War Ragnarok was missing features at launch. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, well, it didn't have photo mode in New Game Plus. And I was like, what? I was like, okay, yeah, those were really missing features. Typically, in my experience, New Game Plus is added later. You know, a month goes by and they're like, hey, we added New Game Plus with some cool stuff or whatever. And photo mode, I feel like that's a common thing that does get added later. I don't feel like that's an expectation like day one in a lot of games. I know photo mode's getting more popular because of like being able to share stuff. However, I was not expecting this from Starfield. And the fact that like they're claiming they have like their own unique incentive and twist on this, in your mind, was that ever the expectation? Because my mind was you just continue to go and go and go and build and build and build and build. And then eventually you're kind of like, okay, I've kind of lived out my, you know, I want to be Captain Pike from Strange New Worlds, right? You know, give myself great head of hair, make myself really handsome, and go out and be an explorer. I never thought I'd like, oh, I'm going to roll the game over and do New Game Plus. Is that something that you anticipate doing? Or, I mean, and how do you think they're going to twist this up and make it different?
I'm not sure how they're going to twist it up, but certain games I'm interested in, like New Game Plus, right? This one, I don't think I'll ever complete the game, to be honest with you. Like, it'll be so big, I don't think, and I like continuing the same character. And yes, you're taking that character and moving it over to New Game Plus, and then you can continue on. But there's no level cap, right? You can just keep like Skyrim and stuff that they added later. Like you could just keep leveling up as far as you want. So I think there's something about that, right? Like if you play the game and all of a sudden you're like level 1000, you put some, you know, thousands of hours in the game, and you've talked to everyone in the universe or the galaxy or whatever. Like there's something about that, right? You know, like it's almost like what I used to talk about Destiny. Like, I want to take all the guns. Like, don't take those guns away from me. Like, everything that I've done in Starfield, I get to, it's my character. It's my game. So, I don't think, personally, I'll do a New Game Plus. And to do a New Game Plus, I mean, usually it's enemies are harder. You still have your perks, you know, but you're just playing the game over again. It's just more difficult. It's a difficulty level thing. So, I don't know. I think a lot of people, I don't know, chat. If you guys are Bethesda fans, would you want to do a New Game Plus after you're done playing the 30 or 40 or 70-hour gameplay? Or would you just continue exploring the galaxy? I think I would just explore the galaxy, personally.
I wonder if they do something with time travel, because they've hinted at certain things in the game that don't seem quite as like rigid, hard sci-fi. Like, oh, it's just you exploring space, like futuristic NASA. You bend space around you. At one point you like touch a relic and there seemingly is like telekinetic powers in the one segment of the Starfield Direct. So I wonder if they do something with time travel with New Game Plus, like, hey, do you want to go back to that to where everything started and do things differently now with all the knowledge that you have, like with the depth that they put into the dialogue system and the conversations. Like I'm really curious if they try to do something like that instead of. How else, like in my mind, how else would you start over? Like, what would be the storyline aspect of that? It seems that they're wanting to almost build a bridge. Just and again, I'm just extrapolating from how it's been phrased. They're almost wanting to build a bridge between your first and then subsequent playthroughs. So we'll await details on that. You know, and saying that things don't necessarily start until after you're done with the campaign. The Starfield wraps for the Xbox Series X became a hot topic of conversation because
we were making fun of them last night a little bit.
Listen, everybody says I'm an Xbox hater. I think they were cool. I was like, that's a great way to be able to update your Xbox and not have to buy a whole new one, like the plates for my PlayStation. I was like, it's basically the same idea. And when they had up close pictures, I actually thought it looked fine. I was like, for $50, that's kind of neat. If I was an enormous fan of, I don't know, Years of War, or if they come out with like a Hellblade 2 one, I would be like, yeah, I kind of want to put Senua on my Xbox Series X, right? What were your thoughts on the wraps?
we thought when we first saw the wraps, and our chat corrected us yesterday, we thought they were like a vinyl with a Velcro backing type of thing. And I said it reminds me of a Trapper Keeper. Right, it reminded me like I was taking a Trapper Keeper and just wrapping my Xbox in like a Trapper Keeper. You know that material? You know what I mean?
I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. My wife has one.
Right. Some people are like, "What the hell's a Trapper Keeper?" But they they said it was fabric, right? And I was like, okay, I would have to see the quality of it, because $50 for me to take something and just kind of, it depends on how it's going to sit around it. I would have to see it, like a good review of it, to then, because if it is a nice feeling material and it looks cool and it sits on it, doesn't like slide off. You know what I'm talking about? Like, I feel like it would like kind of move a little bit. I thought maybe there was like magnets or something that would stick to the actual thing. I don't know. So they look cool, and I get it, because like the old faceplates on the 360, you would buy them for like Gears and Halo and all that stuff. I'm just amazed it took them, what, 3 years? Like, they literally gave us a monolith with nothing on the box. It's just a straight up black box that's just like hard edges, and they didn't decide to put any kind of. It took them 3 years to design the Trapper Keeper for your Xbox. So I hope it's nice. I hope the quality's nice when you see it in person. But $50 seems a little little steep for me. I think I would go more like 30, but you know, that's me.
I do think that from a marketing standpoint, I do think the name hurt it a little bit, like calling it a wrap. Like, I think of like a veggie wrap at like a restaurant. It doesn't invoke, you know.
When I say a wrap, though, a wrap is usually a thing that you stick on your box, and you have to like, you know, like use the squeegee thing to put it on.
Oh yeah, like
that's
yeah.
usually what a wrap is. Like when you put it on the car and stuff like that.
Yeah, maybe that's why they didn't call it a skin, because people would have thought that's what you had to do. I was thinking like you could call it a case. You know, you get like a case for your phone, and then your, you know,
something. Yeah,
a case or a skin, or I don't know. But wrap is. I do think the name is a little. I don't know. You know, is my Xbox suddenly a burrito? Like, what's going on here? You know.
Yeah.
I liked it though. I thought it looked cool. I definitely would get one if it was centered around something that I'm more of a fan of. You know,
you
like
put a Transformers Reactivate one out there.
A Transformers one will be super dope, because you could make it look like Optimus Prime's. You know, like the chassis or whatever. You know, or Ori and the Blind Forest, you know, or Hellblade. I would so be into that. And so I support them doing accessories. I think accessories for the consoles are totally fine. PlayStation gets a lot of hate for their accessories, but the accessories sell very well. And I could see, you know, this doing wraps for big releases, especially when you have some pretty big titles coming like Fable and Hellblade. There's obviously a Gears of War out in the future, and everybody loves the iconography for Gears. It's so memorable. Everybody knows what it looks like. So I bet you we see more. I koozie, yeah, call it an Xbox koozie.
Xbox koozie, yeah. I can see them even throwing them into like the next big launch when you buy the collector's edition, that it comes with the case or the sleeve or the whatever you want to call it. Yeah,
that's how they did it with the Spider-Man plates. Yeah. You could buy the PlayStation 5 and the plates are just already on there, or you could buy them separately. I bought them separately. I had to resist the urge to buy another PlayStation because, you know, I want one in every room, so I don't have to keep moving them. And my kids have both claimed the PlayStation on Saturday. Finally, I have a co-op game, so I'm included. I wasn't included for a while there. Like, my daughter was playing single-player games like Stray, and now she's playing Chia. And my son was playing some Lego game, and now we're playing It Takes Two together, which is just a riot with a little guy, with a kiddo. It's so fun. Because he sees things and laughs at things that I don't. Yep. So it's a really unique experience to play through It Takes Two for like the third time with my little buddy. So that's been a real treat. So I think the wraps are fine. I think that you know, Starfield's going to take over next week. Like, it'll be it's kind of like when Call of Duty does something and everybody goes quiet. So everybody kind of went crazy this week at Gamescom, and it's going to go quiet next week because Starfield's going to kind of take over the marketing cycle.
Being a guy from Florida, I compared it last night. I said the Starfield is like a hurricane right now, right? When a hurricane's off the coast, nobody cares about it until it's like a day away. And then once it's a day away, everybody in the town, everybody around you is like, I got to go to the store. I got to pick up my stuff. They start boarding up the windows. They start doing everything. That's what I feel like Starfield is right now. It's like a giant storm, and it's slowly coming, right? Right now, it hit Cuba, right? That's basically what it is. That's the early access people. They got the storm first, and then it's going to hit the mainland soon. And that's the way I did the analogy.
Yeah. Mo says it'll be longer than a week. Well, I'm saying that as far as people being silent, most people are only going to be silent for about a week. Like, they're not going to stay silent for forever because October is October's going to combust because there's so many stinking games. September will heat up again with marketing because there's a lot of games coming. There's games coming in September, but there's also a ridiculous amount of games coming in October. And I couldn't believe when I went to install and pre-order Armored Core. I just kept scrolling, and I saw Lords of the Fallen, and then I saw Lies of P, and then I saw Spider-Man, and then I saw a couple of the PSVR 2 games that I'm looking forward to. And then I thought, well, there's also Starfield. Oh, and there's Baldur's Gate 3. I was like, what in the world? Like, and that's the last, like, quarter of the year, and I felt overwhelmed at, I'm not going to be able to finish any of these games. How are you going to handle Starfield in light of the impending sort of monsoon in October? Are you just going to say, nah, man, Starfield's it for me? Because I do think it's going to scratch that itch for a lot of people as like the long tail game that they can pour lots of hours into.
I have an idea for Starfield. I'm making produced content for it. I'm going to stream it online, but the major content that I'm doing for Starfield is produced. I'm going to try to make it a like a television show. That's what I have planned for Starfield. So for me, everything, because I don't have a PlayStation 5, so I'm not getting Spider-Man 2 in October.
Okay.
I don't care about what's it called? The one that just came out today, Armored Core 6. So right now my slate's clean. It's Starfield, and obviously, you know, this business, if something works, then you keep doing it. If it doesn't work, you abandon ship as fast as possible and try to pivot to something else. So,
well, I mean, even AC Mirage bumped their date back because I think they're just anticipating, oh my word, like it's just such a monsoon of games. I actually think for a lot of people, Starfield is the game. Like that's the game for them for the rest of the year. It's too big, it's too monolithic, it's going to require too much time, and they're going to look at October and say wish list. They're just going to wish list everything. Which, what a great, I think, time for gamers to have such a backlog of seeming, you know, quality. And the beauty is, some of those games might not be that good. Maybe they land like Jedi Survivor or something.
Right.
And you can kind of avoid that and be like, okay, let's wait for the reviews, because there is just, I think the other concern is there is just so many games coming. Is that going to set expectations for next year? Like, is this sort of like, is this the overflow from 2020 and 2021 and 2023? And then that's going to make 2024 seem bland. Like, well, like, everything finally landed, and then we're going to go back to, you know, not as many games.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, because when we were all stuck in our houses, there was, you know, we were all playing games, but things were stopping, right? Nothing could be worked on. People weren't in studio. People weren't working on the games. There were delays, major delays, still happening because of what happened 3 years ago, right? So I don't think we can expect 2024 to be a slam dunk year. It could be, because it could also be the spillover from the people still working on the game. I think that it's like comparing the year when Mass Effect 2, I think, was it Red Dead? No, Red Dead came out in 2008. I forget what game came out with Mass Effect. There's a couple of games that came out the same year as Mass Effect 2, and that was like a big year. Like 2011, 2012 era was like really big games that came out, and we were just slammed with them, and we were just like, oh my god, this is so many good games.
Yeah.
This is what we're seeing right now this year with Hogwarts and Jedi and you know, Starfield and Final Fantasy. All these games, Baldur's Gate. I don't know if we can hold up this pace for next year. There are going to be games next year that, I mean, if Grand Theft Auto comes out next year, if Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out next year, that's a lock. That's like game of the year. Maybe Wolverine comes out next year, right? So you're going to have a handful of games that come out, but I don't think you're going to have the cadence that we had this year with the amount of games that we got.
Yeah, I think the cadence is going to be really, really tough to keep up with. Like Phil Spencer, I kind of want to transition to his interview that he did, because that's a huge aspect of what happened this week. On kind of the heels of Starfield, I felt like having what looked like to me a good week. You know, we're seeing Xbox Series X actually have a boost in sales on Amazon in the wake of Starfield, which is kind of crazy, because you would think the Series S would get the lion's share.
Right.
But maybe the wrap is helping. Maybe the Starfield wrap is helping people say, "Ooh, I want to get Starfield," and they're connecting Starfield mentally to the X. But he did an interview confirming that they've got a lot of games kind of slated. They're really looking forward to hitting that cadence of a game per quarter. But in this interview, and I want to shift now to that's another topic for us here. This is sort of the big aspect of today's talk show. Yay, Starfield! Can't wait. It's going to take over next week. But he says to Destin that split screen is a creative decision. He starts talking about teams focusing their energy on different things, and that there's no hardware problem here. He talks about Forza. The problem with Forza split screen is not a hardware problem. It's where they focus their attention. It was a lot of passivity that really made it look like, well, this is a Larian problem. This was their choice to do split screen. It's not a hardware problem with the Series S, and we're not going to loosen up on parity. 24 hours later, the CEO of Larian says, had a great meeting with Phil. We're launching no split screen on Series S. So this is the first game to launch without parity as far as features go. I want to know, before we even get to what happened with Larian, what did you think of Phil Spencer's answers and the way he talked about this in the interview with Destin? This is like, imagine it's before Larian has said anything. What did you think of the interview?
I mean, Phil's the head of the studio, right? People can defend either way. They could be like, well, what's he going to say? The S sucks. Don't buy the S. You know what I mean? Like, it's holding us back. His job is to, like, I don't want to say pretend, but I mean, he's a business owner, right? He's running a multi-billion-dollar business. He's not going to tell you that the S is hurting the industry with holding things back. He's got to tell you, oh no, it's not the S's problem. It's up to the developers to make the stuff. But obviously he's not going to take blame for that. Now, say what you want. I mean, is he right or is he wrong? Should he be transparent with the? You let me know when you're in charge of $1 billion company and people are investing in you, and you have to make the choices, and everyone's got pressure on you, and what choices you make, right? So I don't think we can actually say, we could say what would we do. I personally wouldn't have put the blame on the actual studios. I would say, yeah, this is what we're doing with this. We really believe in the parity. We really believe in I would lean more towards the first party games, not third party games. I would say the first party games, we believe in making it right for the S and the X, and we want to release games at the exact same time. But I wouldn't behold third party developers to the same standards as your own first party titles underneath your umbrella of Microsoft Studios. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I don't think Larian should have been put in that position of going, well, yeah, you're making Baldur's Gate 3. You also got to make it work for this with all the same features. Because an analogy, if we buy, I said this last night, if we both buy the same car, Lono, right? Same car, but you get an EX and I get an LX. Mine's got heated seats. Yours doesn't have heated seats. I got cruise control. You don't have cruise control, but you wanted to have the same features as me, even though you paid less. Like, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work like that in any other avenue of our lives, that if I pay more for something and you pay less, you don't have the same features as me. You know what I'm saying? So why would they want to push this on people for their console?
I think the problem is it was marketed in that way that, like, well, you'll just get lower resolution. You're going to get the same game. Right. And that, I think, is the difficulty with the situation, being that now you could be looking at, no, you're not getting the same game, right? You're getting less of a game. And I personally said, listen, I do not expect Phil Spencer to walk out and say, yep, Series S sucks, sorry, y'all. I expect him to say, look, we really valued getting as many people in our ecosystem as possible, and having a low entrance cost box was a part of that strategy. That decision requires a little bit more work for features like split screen, okay, given it is a lower cost box. So we're willing to help Larian with that. I think that is transparent, that's ownership, that's accountability, and that's not what he did.
Right.
He made
I agree with you. I agree.
And my one of my bigger issues with it is like, for the past month or so or more, Larian has had to go out and do these interviews, basically running PR for your company and your choices, instead of just celebrating their game. They're fielding questions about your hardware.
Back since February, when they told everyone when it was coming out, right?
Right.
They said when it was coming out. Since February, they've been saying, oh, it's coming out for PC, it's coming out for this, it's coming out, but we don't know when Xbox is coming out. And this is the reason behind the scenes.
Right. And for him to say what he said, undercutting all those interviews, undercutting all those tweets, essentially like passively throwing them under the bus as if, yeah, they've been essentially saying it's the Series S, but I'm going to sit here and tell you that there's no hardware problem and we're not budging on parity. 24 hours later, Larian makes this announcement. How do you think that transpired? My position was Larian went in the room and was like, all right, enough's enough. You're not throwing us under the bus for this. This is how it's going to be because we don't need your platform, okay? We're enormous in the world right now. You're the smallest player, all right? I feel like they called the shots. They pulled leverage here because Microsoft walked something back 24 hours later. How do you think this conversation transpired between Larian and Xbox? Is that how you see it? Or is this like, oh no, Microsoft's doing right by the consumer?
I think it's a little bit of both, actually. I think that because of the kickback of Baldur's Gate 3, because of how popular it was on PC, and then the running narrative of, well, it's coming out for PlayStation 5, but it's not coming out for Xbox Series X, and then a couple weeks later it comes out because of the S with the split screen. I think it was a just mounting motivation of the fans talking about it on podcasts and forums and live streams and Twitter. And obviously Microsoft looks at all this stuff, right? And they're like, a lot of people really want Baldur's Gate 3 on the thing. And then they're like, Larian's like, look, this is the fever pitch, man. We're flying high right now with this. And what are you going to do? Sit on the benches and sit out until February or March next year when the game, potentially the game of the year is not even in the year that it's coming out, right? This is not like down the road where they're like, yeah, we're selling the Game of the Year edition. No, this is the Game of the Year, and it's not even on your platform until a later date. I really think that Phil was like, okay, the crowd, everyone really wants this game. What's the likelihood of doing this? What about if we make a change here where we push it up to this year to capitalize on that, but we're going to be missing features? Like I said, I think first party, if they want to hold the parity, fine. But you can't make third-party games behold to the lower tier console, right? Based on what they're making they want to make the best game possible, right? What's the difference when they made a game for PlayStation, okay, and it wasn't for PlayStation 4 anymore? It was just for PlayStation 5. This is the exact same thing. I understand it's still the same generation, but the reason they don't want to put it on the 4 is because it's the lower grade system, and it's going to hold them back because they have to put development time in and whatnot into that system. Where now they push it forward and say it's only on the PlayStation 5 because they're trying to get rid of that or get away from that old. Microsoft, for some freaking reason, decided to put the S different than the X. Instead of just making a diskless S and a disc S, or I'm sorry, X, they made the S, which was less power because they wanted people to have a Game Pass box. And now it's coming around and they're roosting here, right? Now they're more and more games are coming out with problems, split screen features. Like it starts to show smoke. Halo's not getting split screen. Why? Well, it's not because of a hardware problem, right? Sure. Then Forza Motorsports missing split screen, missing other things. Oh, but it's not a hardware problem. And then it's not on the S, right? And now Larian, third party game. Oh well, we're not coming out at the exact same time because we can't have split screen. Why? Because of the S. Well, if it looks like a duck and acts like a duck, it's probably a duck, and there it is. The S is the problem. So for them to say it's not the problem, and yet it is didn't they have a tweet? Didn't they have a tweet saying, yeah, co-op and stuff is coming out on the Xbox Series X. It's not coming out for the Series S. We'll work on it down the road.
I mean, the actual tweet didn't say we'll work on it. The CEO just said Series S is not getting split screen. He made no indication. Yeah, it's dropped. There's no indication that they're working on this or trying to bring it. And I think this hurts Xbox in a number of ways. Their own engineers couldn't even get this to work because they were helping Larian with this. And people are saying, I don't think that's how it played out. I don't know how to look at this any other way, where the CEO of Xbox says, we're not going to budge on parity. This is a creative decision. It's not an inherent problem with the hardware. And then the next day, the CEO of Larian's like, no, we're launching the game and we're not doing split screen on the Series S. I don't think they came to the realization at Gamescom of all places, like, hey, Phil, just to let you know, while we're here at Gamescom, we're just not going to be able to get this to work. I don't think like the Xbox engineers and Larian waited until that moment to come to that conclusion. I think this was a reaction to that interview of, You're making it sound like this is on us. Enough is enough. We've been fielding enough questions about this. This isn't our problem. It's your problem. So take it or leave it, right? Like we have enough market pull right now that if we skip Xbox, we were the most pre-ordered game on PlayStation 5 over Madden. Sure. We broke all these records on Steam. We're breaking Metacritic scores. We're going to have another surge of sales in the holiday season because of the Game Awards. We don't need this hanging over our game any longer, okay? Let's get it out this year. This is nonsense at this point.
I like how you're saying it, but I don't think that's how it played out, right? It's like I don't think they want to burn bridges, right? Microsoft, even though it's a smaller tier to PlayStation as far as user base out there, I don't think Larian was like, I demand you to do. I don't think it worked that way, but it does sound nice. I think they fundamentally, instead of flying Phil over there to test out the game or giving him a build, they're like, hey, when we're at Gamescom, we're going to show you what we got. And then he looked at it and went, yeah, let's figure out something. I don't see them being like, listen here, Phil, you take it or leave it, or you're out the door because we're coming out. I don't think it went that way. I think they went, look, we're trying hard. Your developers came out. We tried to work it. It didn't work out. So we got to figure out something. We want to get our game out there. It's hot. Everyone wants it right now. It's coming out for PlayStation 6 next week. Are we doing this year? Or do you want us to wait 6 months? Like I said 2 weeks ago, CPL, like I said 2 weeks ago, where it comes out 6 months later and they don't have split screen. They still tell you, oh yeah, we couldn't get split screen to work. So now not only did you miss the game coming out for Game of the Year, right, in 2023, but now you're 6 months delayed from everybody else. And we've moved on. There's other games coming out. There's other things that people want to play. It's no longer the fever pitch of the best game of that one Game of the Year potentially wins best Game of the Year. And now you're just another, so we waited for what? Nothing? Now we waited for the split screen to happen and it didn't happen. And we miss out on the excitement of everything. I don't know. I like it though. I like the action hero where they came in and they're like, get out of here.
I obviously am being hyperbolic.
I know.
But the timing is undeniable. Phil says we're not budging on parity. It's not a hardware problem. And 24 hours later, Larian's like, yeah, we are budging on parity. Like, Larian basically said what Phil just said yesterday is not true. Like, within 24 hours. Like, that's not a good look. During Gamescom of all times, like, I don't think Larian was like, oh yeah, this is the best time to make this announcement as a partner with Microsoft. Let's undercut what the CEO said just 24 hours before. I think they were like, no, enough's enough. We're done with this. We're done with this narrative. We're done with having our abilities questioned, okay? It's not a matter of a lack of ability. You got people running with the narrative like, well, Larian doesn't have the resources to do this, like Xbox has to help them. It's like, no. I don't think you repudiate what the CEO of Xbox said within 24 hours unless it was leverage. Larian walked in the room with leverage and said, listen.
Of course, the best game right now.
Right. Diplomatically, they said, I think it's in everybody's best interest if we launch this game this year and we drop split screen on the S, because it's not happening. Even your engineers are not getting anywhere near what we need. And it's in everybody's best interest that we do this, Phil, given that yesterday, you kind of made it sound like it was our problem and our fault. I think this was handled diplomatically, but it was also handled in a way that said, you're done blaming us passively, okay? We're done with that.
So are you for it or are you against it? Because I said last week, it's stupid that we're being punished as an Xbox Series X owner, that I'm being punished because it doesn't run on the S, right? Like, make it run on the X now, launch it on the X now, and then when it's ready for the S, then launch it on the S. That's what I said, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago when we talked about this, right? Mm-hmm. So are you for it, or do you think it sends a bad message because now other people are going to be like, wait a minute, you let Larian do it, and now you're going to behold us to holding it to this parity thing?
I want to answer your question, but first I want to answer Zubair's question. He says, do you really think Larian is tracking this? Like, are they really tracking this kind of thing? The clips were everywhere on Twitter, and the Larian guys are very active on Twitter. They 100% saw this answer, and if they saw it the way I saw it, I'm telling you, I rewound the interview. I was like, wait, did Phil just say that? Like, it literally makes it sound like, the guys at Forza aren't having problems with the hardware. It was just what they focused on. It was where they focused their energy, which that's a whole other can of worms. Like, so Forza Motorsport was delayed, and you just said that we're not getting split screen, half of the tracks aren't coming till later as well because of where they focus their energy. Well, where the frick did they focus their energy on this delayed title that's launching without all of its race tracks and missing features, Phil? Like, what did you just actually admit to? Like, where's the oversight of your studios here? But that's another discussion. To take what Zubair said, though, they saw this interview, and the optics did not look good for Larian. It undercut everything Larian had been saying on Twitter and in interviews. They looked like liars. Like, they had been saying, yeah, the issue is the S, the issue is the S. And then Phil's like, yeah, it's not a hardware problem. It's a creative decision. I'm sorry, what? That you basically made Larian look like a bunch of, you threw him under the bus, basically. Now, to answer your question, my prediction was a little bit different. I said, I bet this game launches this year on Xbox. They're going to compromise somewhere. Microsoft's going to want this game this year because it's going to hit a fever pitch in November of the nominations for Game of the Year. They're going to win the award in December handedly. Baldur's Gate's running away with it, no doubt. Okay? And that's great. I said, I bet you they try to get this thing out in November or December. That's a great time to have like, hey, it's on Xbox, and it's like in line with the marketing and the praise and the Game of the Year, right? I thought they were just going to drop split screen entirely. That was my prediction.
Oh, but because they put it on the X and not the S, yeah.
Because here's the deal. I was thinking, Microsoft was going to be the one kind of navigating that. The fact that split screen's coming on the X and not the S, that again speaks to Larian having leverage, because that's not as optically good for Microsoft.
Right.
It's better for Microsoft to say, hey guys, Forza just announced split screen's coming later. We're going to do the same thing with Baldur's Gate. We're going to get split screen coming later, okay? That's better optically for Microsoft to like, okay, we get to dangle the promise. Breaking parity is a broken promise. And so that, again, I think speaks to leverage that Larian had here. They said, no. We're not cutting a feature from the Xbox Series X. Absolutely not. We worked hard on that feature.
Right.
We're not giving split screen to the S. So I think this is great for the gamers because the gamers just wanted the game, right? Now, everybody's hand-waving split screen. Nobody plays split screen. Okay, a split screen game won Game of the Year 2 years ago.
Yeah,
be
play
careful.
Split screen. Yeah. Because you guys don't play split screen doesn't mean nobody plays split screen.
Yeah, y'all sound ignorant. There was like so many consumers of Halo that were angry. Like, the birthplace of split screen, it was in many people's minds, it was GoldenEye and Mario Kart. But in many people's minds, it was Halo.
Halo, yeah.
And to act like split screen doesn't matter, just because it doesn't matter to you doesn't mean it is not a heavily requested feature. Halo Infinite split screen was a suggested search term on YouTube because people wanted to know when it was coming, because it was promised and then subsequently cut. So continuing to hand wave like, nobody cares about split screen. I said this earlier. Split screen is a symptom of a larger problem. Split screen itself is not the problem. It's what it represents.
Yep.
It's something you cannot do. Split screen works on the PS5. Split screen's going to work on the Xbox Series X. What else are you missing out on, right? Imagine you're a first-party developer, Mike, and you've been having to cut features or delay, just like Forza has, largely because of the S. What do you look at this and think? Because Larian just got a pass. Larian just got to get out of class card.
Yeah. Why am I busting my ass to work on these things that we can't be done, and you're forcing us to do it? Where Larian's like, yeah, it can't be done. And they're like, all right, we'll just drop it, and you guys can just launch your game, right? That as a developer or the upper management of those first-party title games be like, wait a minute, we just been putting 80 hours in a week trying to get this feature to work for us, and you're going to let them go ahead and just go through? And what Phil could say is, yeah, well, they made a game that's Game of the Year. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's hard. It's disheartening for, I would assume, the developers going, wait a minute. What's good for the goose is not good for the gander. What's happening here where you're letting these guys get away with it, but we have to sit here and work our asses off to get a feature day and date on both consoles when we're having a hard time and we can't do it. And they're like, why don't they say the same thing right now? Forza Motorsports, right? Just kidding. It's coming out, and we're not worried about split screen. Split screen's on Xbox Series X, but it's not on Series S, right? What's stopping them?
Well, let's imagine now, Mike, that you're a third-party developer. And you're a third-party developer that was told, yeah, you got to have feature parity. So things either got cut or chopped or extra work had to be done, right? How many people were facing the same thing Larian is facing and subsequently had to delay the game or push things back to get it onto the Xbox ecosystem? Now they see this announcement. Let's say you're Square Enix and you just made this agreement with Microsoft. You're bringing Final Fantasy 14 to the box. You know, what if you want to bring Final Fantasy 16 over there? But you know what? It just can't run on the S. You want to bring it to the X. You know, is this a floodgate situation? Are they going to suddenly be facing a lot of requests to skip the S, or just like, I'm not going to put features on the S? It's too much trouble.
I like I said earlier, I think third parties shouldn't be held to the parity system. If I want to make the best game, right, then like PlayStation Studios, they said we're going to make God of War for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. But when they made Ratchet and Clank, they made a choice and said, nope, we're just making it for PlayStation 5. We're not making it for PlayStation 4. I know it's different because it's a last gen to this gen, but it's the same exact business model, right? Less features can happen on the PlayStation 4, so we only made it for the PlayStation 5. Xbox should come out and say, look, you can have the same game. I did the analogy last week, Lono, with Destiny. When you played Destiny 1 on the Xbox 360 and it moved over to the One, there was less features, less things, visuals, graphics, the explosions and everything, right? You could still play the game, but it was just less stuff. There wasn't more things in space. There wasn't less explosions. There was less graphical, less shadows. That's just what it is. If they want to make the game for Xbox Series S and people are happy with the Series S, right? There's still people watching 720p. There's still people watching 1080p. There's other people playing 4K, right? It's stupid. It's a stupid business decision, but Microsoft said that you have to do it on this day and this thing on the same date. They should let it open, in my opinion. I know people that have the S would be like, well, this is appalling. I paid $350 for the S, and great. You got what $350 gets you. The people that paid $500 for the Series X want the 4K, 60 frames with all the bells and whistles because they paid for it.
I think the problem with what you're saying, kind of in tandem with what I was asking Zero, the big boss in chat, to kind of chill on insulting people, saying that, like, well, if you bought a Series S, you're a clown, and unless you're 8 years old, you got a rubber nose. It's like, what do you mean? They were promised certain things. Like, how dare they believe the marketing? Like,
well, no, they still get the game. They're still getting the game. There just be features missing.
But that's not what they were promised.
No, well, we were promised 4K and 60 frames per second, up to 120 frames per second. We didn't get that either.
Right, but I think I'd be a way more... I don't want to be lenient on that at all because the marketing was ridiculous. Like, the guy literally says the Xbox Series X is designed to do native 4K with up to 120, which is laughably insane to say out loud. Like, even the PlayStation 5 knew better than to promise native 4K up to 120, right? Like, they promised crazy performance for the X, and then they said, you're going to get the same great performance on the S, just at 1440. Even that's not true. You got to run to old gen games to make that retroactively true, which is always hilarious to me. People are like, well, no, the marketing's accurate. Why? Well, because I can play all these old games at that performance. That's not what the marketing was about. And to not only not get those performance promises, but then to literally get less features. Do you think they're going to have to start charging less money when a game lands like this? Like, are they going to charge less for Baldur's Gate?
Do you get less features when you buy the Blu-ray player and you don't have a television that does 4K? You only have a 1080p, but you have a Blu-ray player that's plugged into your television. Do you pay the same or do you pay less because you don't have a 4K television? I don't know. The same.
I don't know if
it's the same because you're only running on that disc. It's the same. You're getting the disc that does 4K, but your television doesn't do 4K. It still looks good. It still looks great, but it doesn't do what the disc is saying it does.
I don't think
it upscales it.
I don't think that's a functioning parallel because if I bought a DVD player, a different piece of hardware to play a movie that didn't have those features, like they bought a different piece of hardware and they're buying a version of the game that is different. Like, it doesn't have that feature. It's not there. When they download that game on their S, it's not there. It's disabled.
When you're saying features, though, we're talking split screen and stuff. I'm talking graphically, it's the same. Like, it runs on the S. Like, if I get Starfield, I can play it on the Xbox One through the cloud. Okay? On the Xbox One, people can play Starfield, right? You can play it on the S. You can play it on the X, right? Where you choose to play is where graphically, and you can play the physical game on that box. But as far as features missing, like if there was split screen, if there's I'm trying to think of something else where maybe inventory. Well, there's less inventory on the Series S because of whatever, maybe Blizzard made the game and it loads too many things in at once, whatever, right? There's less stuff that you get on the S because of what the box can do, what it can do. It physically can't do the same things. What has it got, 4 compared to the 12?
Well, I think a better comparison would be is if I went and bought a DVD player and you bought a Blu-ray player.
Yeah.
My when I go to the store, I would buy a DVD that would cost less because it comes with less features, and you would buy the Blu-ray, which would cost more because it comes with more features. I think that makes more sense to me.
But what about they stop selling DVD players and then stop selling regular DVDs and you only get the Blu-ray? But Blu-ray plays on all the systems. But now you have your television that doesn't have 4K. You just have a TV that does 1080p or 2K. You still have to buy the 4K version of the $25 DVD to put in your player. You're just not getting the full experience because your TV can't run it.
I think the problem with that, though, is you're shifting the analogy to the television, and I don't think that's
the system.
But I don't think that that's fair in this situation because the Series X was sold as looking at lower resolutions, not getting less stuff in the game. Like, that's the issue. It's like, let's say it's something far more endemic than split screen. It's something that is actually a tangible, lesser version of the game. Like, a good example would be Horizon Forbidden West on PS4 and PS5.
Okay.
The PS5 version was more expensive because it had more features, right? It offered cinematic lighting and all this stuff. They did something similar with the director's cut of Ghost of Tsushima. For an extra $10, you got all these PlayStation 5 features. So you actually spent more money for more features. So in my mind, that's how this should look. If I'm literally buying a game with less stuff, I'm not talking about the funnel of graphics, like it's going to get less graphics on my TV.
Yeah, it's the features of the actual thing.
I feel like it should be less money because I'm getting less game.
So do you think it should be less money that you paid for Hogwarts Legacy because PlayStation bought the extra mission? So do you think that Xbox should have paid less money for them because they had less missions? That's a different feature. I did
a stream on that. I can't stand that because I actually have said that. It's like they're getting less game for the same money. But you're paying the same price. And I was strongly against that. I do not agree with games doing that. I don't like artwork being chopped up like that. I have a whole stream being against the exclusive missions and items for the PlayStation 5 version of Hogwarts. I thought that was a terrible decision.
Real quick, Alex Perez, I don't know why you keep smacking your forehead, because if you heard me, if you clear out your ears, I said Xbox messed up. I'm not a Xbox shill. I am a gamer that talks about the industry stuff, right? I never said that Xbox is perfect in any way, shape, or form. I literally said they should drop the parity. I literally said, but then people defend that, well, they said it was going to come out this way. They also said it was going to be 60 frames per second. They also said up to 120 frames per second. They also said it was going to be 4K. So please stop hitting yourself in the forehead. You're just making yourself, brain damage there.
Yeah, but Solemn, there were people that bought the Horizon Forbidden West PlayStation 4 version because then they could go play it on the PS5 and they would get all the extra features. If I bought the Horizon Forbidden West version on my PS5, I spent more money. So what you're saying, I think there's demonstration in the market to say, listen, if you buy it on the Series S, it's going to be $10 cheaper. And if you come over to the X later and you want to unlock those features, you could opt to pay that, that money. Now, they didn't make people pay on Horizon Forbidden West because they had promised in a blog post to do the upgrade for free. But going forward, that upgrade's no longer free on the cross-generational games. We're not even in cross-generation anymore. We're leaving that behind. But in that context, you had people saving money, spending less money because they were getting less features. It was the exact same game. Horizon Forbidden West, exact same game, but you didn't get the cinematic lighting, you didn't get the haptic feedback, the 3D audio, you didn't get those things, so you spent less money because you got less game. Like that to me is logical. We've been consistently talking about this. Like, newer games are doing more and they're awesome and they have new things. We've recently talked about like AC Mirage. We said it's going to get better review scores because it's only $50. And right. I said that Immortals of Avium would probably have gotten better review scores if it wasn't $70.
If it wasn't $70.
Right?
I agree with that.
You buy a game that's going to give you hundreds of hours of playtime. It should cost a little bit more money than the game that you're going to play for 12 hours and put down, right? That to me is just exactly a logical value transmission system to say that I'm buying a game for my Series S, I'm getting less. Think about what we're saying. The Series S was cheaper, was it not? It was a cheaper box. Why? Comes with less stuff.
Yeah.
So when I buy a game that comes with less stuff, it's the cheaper version, is it not? So it's the cheaper version only in essence, not in cost? Come on. That's not how it should work.
This could go down a whole different rabbit hole, because you could say games should be cheaper if I paid it digitally instead of paying physical. You know what I mean?
There have been people that have made that argument.
Yeah.
That I should not have to pay as much for digital. And I would say, well, there's convenience, you know, you just download it. You didn't have to leave your house or pay for shipping. So no, I don't think so. Like I get why people say that about digital versus physical, but yeah, no.
I personally don't think you pay less. I think you pay the same. You paid because you paid for the bigger box, you get more features. That's just what it is. So this could go down to a different conversation of are games being held back at 30 frames per second because of the S, right? Are games that are parity on both Xbox Series S and X being held? Now, obviously, it's not out. We're not going to hear stuff like that. But we also didn't know about these features. Even Phil didn't even admit that the box is the problem, right? He literally blamed it, said it straight up. Oh, no, it's not the hardware. Meanwhile, it is the hardware. So is it the hardware? Why we're not getting 60 frames per second games? And what's the solution? When the games come out on Series X, can they run 60 frames per second? But the Series S only runs 30 frames per second? You know what I mean? Like, it starts to open up this whole Pandora's box of what's being held back because of the S.
That was my next question. What do you think as a Series X owner? You're sitting here thinking, wait a minute, you just confirmed that stuff doesn't work, and because you forced feature parity for the last 3 years, what have I missed out on? What have I not gotten as a Series X owner? As a Series S owner, like, I want to interact with what Solomon is saying. He's like, I see where you're coming from, but the Series S and X version are one version. As soon as you buy the Series X, you still have the full game, so I don't see it as fair to pay less when you're getting the full edition. You are not getting the full edition. I want you to imagine being a Series S owner, and what you're telling that person is, no, you have to pay full price for the game. I know you don't have access to this feature out of the box. If you want access to that feature, all you got to do is buy a $500 console, and then you get that feature. It's just a small little one-time fee of $500 to unlock split screen. Like, that is ludicrous. That is ludicrous. So, Mike, from the perspective as a Series S owner or a Series X owner,
I own both.
This hits you in different ways, right? It hits different.
Yeah, I have the S. I gave it to my son. I bought it first because the X's weren't available, right? So I bought an S, and then I was like, I justified it. I said, okay, I'll have the S until the X, I can get the X. And then I'll give the S to my son. And that was his first console, right? So he absolutely loves the S. And he also doesn't give a crap about 30, 60, 4K. He doesn't care about any of that. He puts on the game and plays, and he has a blast. And he deletes games and puts games, and he absolutely loves the S. For me, I bought $500 system because I was told it was doing this, this, and this. And now I'm burnt, right? I'm not going to sell my Xbox, right? I'm here. I got the Xbox. But when they come out with the next system, oh no. I ain't buying your thing day one. I ain't buying it year one. I ain't buying it until you say it does something and it's proven that it actually does something, right? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, no sir. You know what I'm saying? So I am pissed off as a Xbox Series X and S owner that games are being delayed or pushed back because the lower box can't handle it. Right. Now here's the real question. Can you play, well, I'm trying to think of a game. I guess Forza Motorsports with the split screen, right? When it comes out. Let's say it can't get split screen on the S for some reason, right? Can it get split screen on the Samsung TV from Cloud Gaming?
No, because the series, the cloud server blades put two profiles on a single Series X, and you actually play games on a Series S profile.
Gotcha.
So you cannot avoid. That was a solution people put out.
What about if you paid for the upgraded? What about if you paid for the upgraded version? You know what I mean? Like where you're playing off an X and not an S.
I mean, then they'd have to. That would be something they'd have to offer, which would work against their lack of cloud capacity right now. They don't have a whole lot of cloud capacity, according to Jez Gordon. They don't have enough capacity. That would shrink capacity by giving one person one server blade.
So what does Microsoft do here, right? Because you don't want to divide your player base, because I guarantee there'll be people that play Starfield right now on the Series S, and they'd be like, you know what? It's gonna be a lot better on the X, and they'll upgrade their system to the X, right? But I don't think that's going to be a lot of people. I think that's going to be certain people that have an S that maybe couldn't get an X right away. And now this is that game where they're like, you know what? I'm going to upgrade to the X. But what do? Because they have 2-to-1 ratio of S's to X's out there, right? They also have people that have the S's or in the ecosystem. Like, they're stuck in the ecosystem where they're buying games from Microsoft Store, or they're playing games off Game Pass, and they're all digital, and they can't get a third-party game or a second party game from a GameStop or anything to put into their system. So where does Microsoft go from here? Do they continue to just keep pumping out the series, because they just upgraded the S with more storage, right? They're not upgrading the X, but yet they have sleeves and stuff for the X that are coming out. So are they promoting for people to upgrade to the X so they can buy sleeves? And what are they doing? I don't know what they're doing. I'm confused on what they're doing.
I've tried to tell people that. I'm like, the identity of the platform is so all over the place and changing. I don't know what, like, oh, no console required. Okay. Oh, we're focusing on Series S. Okay. Like, internal emails saying we've constrained consoles to push cloud. Okay. But then your cloud's not even that great, right? You don't have capacity. PlayStation's beating you to 4K. Apparently their proprietary infrastructure is faster than yours with however many gig a second with the Cura server thing they built. It's like, what are you doing? Because even in the interviews with Phil Spencer, he's talking about no need for a mid-gen upgrade. Series S is the focus. He said, our focus right now is the larger hard drive Series S. I'm like, what's the focus? I don't understand.
What's the focus?
Yeah, what is the focus? Are you an ecosystem? Are you cloud? Does the Series X matter? Does power matter? Have you gone to any of these showcases, Gamescom, Summer Game Fest, your own showcase? Have you once this year talked about the power of the Series X and what games are going to look like? You can't, because that's not the focus. The focus is the Series S. And then if the Series S is the focus, people are like, oh, a mid-gen, I bet you we get a mid-gen, or we bet you we get a next-gen. How are you going to do that if feature parity is a continued looming problem? What good is a mid-gen upgrade if it's shackled to the Series S? What good is it? Like, because people are like, oh, yeah, I guess the PS5 wasn't strong enough, got to do a mid-gen upgrade. What are you talking about? That's not how it works. There's a floor of performance that both Series X and PS5 are hitting now, and the Pro is going to go above that. Everything we've been getting right now on PS5, nobody's been having any major issues at all with games. Other than what? I think the worst thing we've dealt with is the performance mode in Final Fantasy 16 is not ideal. Every other game that's been landing on the PlayStation 5 is delivering what this gen was supposed to deliver. 60 FPS, 4K, no load times, like all those things we were promised for next gen. And a Pro will go beyond that.
Right.
And Xbox is then shackled to and stuck to the S. Like, that is the console. That's it.
Right. And then if they do something where they put it out on the X first, then the S's will be like, well, why did they get it first? And then if we're missing features, then they're like, wait a minute, why are we missing features over here? You know what I mean? It's a lose-lose. No matter what side they pick for the S or X side, they're going to be hurting part of their player base. So who do they hurt more? The ones that paid more money, or the ones that's the majority of the population?
Well, and if you're a third-party developer, because people are like, oh, third-party developers are going to start asking to skip the S entirely. I'm like, no, they're not. You just want to sell to people who own the Series X? Like,
right, you just shrunk the whole player base, yeah.
Yeah, that's like the smallest portion of their player base. Like, everything's working against Microsoft in this situation. You're the smallest player in the market. If you look at any of the sales numbers, the percentage of people who buy games on Xbox in relationship to how many people are on the ecosystem is always really, really low. Why? Well, you fostered the ecosystem and the culture around Game Pass. So buying games day one is not a habit of the customer. It's not something that they do. They check Game Pass first every time. And so you're now looking at third-party developers and saying, come to our platform. You may or may not have to deal with parity on the Series S. And you may or may not even sell that well on our platform because we've basically fostered an ecosystem of subscription-based gaming. And if you don't want to go on subscription-based gaming, you're not going to get primo treatment. You're not going to get primo marketing. Right. You're going to be nowhere. There's another game that is a de facto timed exclusive for PlayStation. The Lord of the Rings Mines of Moria game is coming to Xbox later. It's hitting PC and PlayStation first.
It's not the hardware, Lono. It's not the hardware.
Yeah, but it's not the hardware. Phil said it's not the hardware, so it's something else.
Another game that's having a problem and it's not coming to Xbox.
I don't even know what to say anymore. It's like I'm out of grand rants and statements to make to wake people up to the fact that the Xbox as a gaming ecosystem, as an identity, as a box, it is just this diluted mess right now. I don't know what it's turning into. It's turning into some kind of a weird Frankenstein of a platform where it's not a console anymore. It's an ecosystem, but it's an ecosystem that can't really rely heavily on cloud because cloud doesn't quite have the capacity. So what exactly is the identity of the platform at this point?
I truly think maybe that they're literally trying to get people, because they do say that 2-to-1 is S owners, and then half of those people are brand new to the Xbox ecosystem, right? So it's like, are they trying to get people to like what you do with your cell phone? Like you buy a cell phone and then 2 years go by, you trade in your cell phone to go into the next cell phone. So are they trying to do like the upgrade thing where you get in with the Series S, right? Brand new gamers that have never been with the Xbox before, and they're marketing towards the S's. $350, pay $100 more, or $180, less than $500. You get Game Pass for a full year, and you get the Xbox that can, play those games at that rate. Might miss features, okay? But for less than $500, for $480, you can literally get a game system with hundreds of games that to your access for that full year. And then if people look at it and go, yeah, you know what, I'm enjoying myself, maybe I'm going to upgrade to the X. I don't know if that's what they're doing, because it just seems so ridiculous that it's not the hardware problem, but games keep coming out for it, but yet they're pushing the S's, because you can go to Costco right now, S's are stocked, right? You go to Target, S's are stocked, right? You could find X's here and there still. Prices are going up. I saw an article yesterday, right? Like yesterday, Xbox Series X shot up the roof, right? Because I think Starfield's pushing that sale. But what are they doing? Do they want people to upgrade from the S, or do they want people just to buy the S and be happy with it? I don't know.
Well, and the actual Series X skyrocketing on Amazon, somebody added some context to that. We might not be representing that accurately. He said it's just the difference between the current position and the last position, and he said Series X had been sold out for almost a week. And now it's in the top 20. So we need to
one person bought one last week and 10 people buy it this week, it shoots up, right? Yeah.
Right. So we need to be a little bit careful there. I don't think there's a sudden people took to be like Series X is really jumping in saturation. It's like they've not made that many. They've admitted that they constrained Series X for cloud. And so the jump on Amazon has been grossly misrepresented. And yes, it was a restock, basically. They restocked the Series X, and that's why it jumped, because it wasn't. It went from a 0.
Yeah, exactly. If no one can buy it, then you can't buy it.
It went from a 0 to some crazy percentage because it was a restock. We saw similar insane jumps in PlayStation first party titles when they would do restocks of PS5, like Horizon Forbidden West sales surged by 700%, and I'm like, well, yeah, because nobody was buying it. It had been out for 7 months, and then you restock PS5s, and all of a sudden everybody's buying Horizon Forbidden West. So we gotta be careful with those kind of stats. I continue to think that the move for Microsoft is there's two roads here, right? They really figure out how to become that ecosystem that everywhere. Maybe they've got some kind of a solution for the cloud capacity challenges and they really lean there. Or ABK is going to jettison them into a more publisher role, like less of a platform, more of a publisher, like UB and EA Play. That's available on all platforms for the most part, and I could see I could see them trying to sell Game Pass on other platforms. Like, yeah, we're getting out of hardware. And you can play us on the cloud. You can play our stuff on Ubi. You can play our stuff on NVIDIA. You can, we're over there on PlayStation 2. I mean, I don't know. It's an odd future for them at this point because I don't see a way out of this that's good given the slowness of the saturation of this Xbox console. What's the Series S going to look like in 8 years? Because that's your console. And
right, your lowest common denominator. It's the lowest one, and you have to make games for it. So,
and what's the bridge out? Like I don't see a bridge out of here. Like you can't just keep buying publishers and developers and forcing them to put games on your platform because you're not selling enough of the platforms to make money off of them. So if you buy all these developers, you're still going to have to sell those games on other platforms to recoup costs. Like all the ABK property is going to have to recoup costs outside of the Xbox consoles because there's not enough Xbox consoles to justify doing any exclusivity with those titles.
The only thing I can see is if Xbox makes exclusives like they did in the past, just like Sony did in the past, where they buy exclusivity and then put those exclusivities on Game Pass, right? And then the developers would be okay with that because then they're getting majority of the money up front or whatever the contract is, right? They might get it all up front and then just put it on Game Pass. And they have, because that's where they're going. They want Game Pass to succeed. They don't care. The reason that Starfield is going to do so well is because people are going to get into Game Pass for $17 for the Ultimate, right? Or for the $10 version, and they want to keep them on Game Pass with other games, right? So they come in for Starfield, but they might stay for Elder Scrolls. They might come in and buy a microtransaction. They might purchase the game after they played it because it leaves Game Pass. So that's what they want. They want the retention of people coming on to Game Pass and stay as long as possible. So I don't know what the future looks like for them as far as how they're going to, because they got to keep coming out with games. You got to keep putting new games, first party, third party games on Game Pass to keep it going. This is why I said in the past, I don't think they can keep it going. It's unsustainable. Yeah,
the cadence is a concern I've tried to highlight because I believe Jedi Survivor suffered from Disney's cadence of we want a new Star Wars game every 6 months. I think Jedi Survivor should have come out holiday this year, and it would have been 1,000 times better than it turned out. And I worry that a new big game every quarter at quality, I don't think that's a sustainable cadence. I think that's just that's a big, huge promise that even if it comes true like super late in the life cycle of the console, like it's not going to make up for the fact that like the first 3 years were so dodgy and rocky. Right. It's like, well, okay, great. You know, that's the overcorrection I'm concerned as well. Like I look at games like Hellblade. Do we need to rewind the clock to all the people that told me Hellblade was coming this year? Do we need to do that? You guys remember saying that? Do you? It's probably in the long history of tweets you've had to delete about all your terrible predictions. But, Hellblade's coming this year. I'm like, it better not come this year. That thing needs to cook. It's not been in full production for even a full 2 years yet, according to the CEO. So it's like, I look at games like Hellblade, I look at games like Fable and Avowed, and I think to myself, are you going to overreact here? You had this giant vacancy of launch from first party, and then you're going to push this cadence out to satisfy Game Pass and the subscription funnel of Game Pass, and we're going to get a bunch of games like Forza Motorsport, where it's like, here's half of a game. Here's half of the racetracks. Here's missing features. And somebody said it today, is like, well, will that keep people on Game Pass? It's like, well, I'm kind of waiting for them to update or add or do this or that. Forza's going to get some tracks and some stuff later, so better stay on Game Pass. I don't want to lose access to all these games. Like, I don't think that's the ultimate plan, but I also think that could be the sort of the mantra and the motto of, it's like Xbox's version of early access, like what Steam does. It's like you're getting games before they're done, essentially.
Right, and that's the problem. They could use Game Pass as a like really high end, like, oh look, we have great games and you get them for this price. But instead, when someone goes, oh, it's coming to Game Pass, you're like, it seems undercooked. And I'm not saying all third party games. I'm saying they're first party games. Majority of them come out, they're missing features, they're not complete, they're buggy per se, right? And then they get fixed over time. But third party is doing the same. Look at 2042. Look at Cyberpunk. They all did the same thing. But Game Pass could be a thing where it's like, oh, it's so awesome, but at the same time, it's like, oh, it's like the bargain bin when you go to like Walmart.
Right. Well, and the other issue, because somebody's saying, not having split screen's not half of a game. You need to do a little bit of research into just how much Forza Motorsport's not launching with, like a long list of tracks that are coming later Like that's would you, would you let another racing game get away with that? Like if GT7 was like, hey guys, we're dropping, no split screen, missing features. Oh yeah, and half the tracks aren't there. They'll be there later.
But that's the difference though. If you're paying it up front, $70, $80, $100 for the special edition, or if you're getting it on Game Pass and you're only paying $10, you're like, I can wait for $10. But if you pay $80, right, $70, whatever, you're like, I paid the money up front. Now I have to wait 6 months for this game to be complete.
Oh, but Game Pass won't affect the value of games, Mike.
Oh, of course not.
Get out of here. I'm depressed about. I'm depressed about it. I don't like being right about this stuff. I wanted this thing to. I wanted this plane to level out. I wanted something to happen. Them to figure something out. Something to turn and fix. And it's just like it just gets worse. Like I'm ready to throw confetti in the air for Starfield, but that's one game. That's right. One game. That's not enough to resolve all these issues. And we also haven't even seen it in action on a Series S or a Series X. No, they showed Series X footage at the Direct. No, they didn't. Go back and watch. All the on-screen buttons are PC. Left shift, left mouse.
See how Starfield runs on my Xbox One. I'm gonna play it on the Xbox One and see how it works.
Well, I mean, you'll be getting the Series. Well, maybe not. You'll be getting some sort of a Series S, cloud.
I have an X, I have an S, and then I'm gonna try the One, which is running S over the cloud, right? So
you'll get to see it. You'll get to see all of it in all of its glory. Goodness gracious, I actually liked Gamescom this week. I thought it was pretty good. Did you? A lot of folks, obviously, this happens every year. I think I've lost count how many times I've covered 8 years of conferences, right? And there's always people in chat like, L, Resident Sleeper, L, snooze, what a lame show, I'm bored. Like, that's like every show, right? They could literally come out and, like, clone a human being in 30 seconds and say, this is going to be your new video game experience companion. And they'd be like, this is boring. Like, there's some people you just can't please. Yep. It was, the tone was different, though. Even Keeley ahead of time was like, this is mostly games that have already been announced.
Yep.
And I've been saying I think the marketing's shifting. Shorter marketing funnels, shorter marketing windows. PlayStation didn't talk about virtually anything outside of the next, 12 to 18 months. Xbox kind of pulled out the old playbook for their showcase. They showed us games that we have no idea when they're coming, like Fable and Avowed.
Yep.
And I feel like that's the old playbook. Which direction do you see things going with respect to marketing and like big, huge new game announcements? Do you think this is kind of a beginning of a shift where it's like, nah, we're only going to talk about stuff that's coming in the near future. No more of this teaser trailer. And we're like, when's that coming out? Like 7 years ago when they showed us Beyond Good and Evil 2.
No, I think they still do what you just said. I think they do it at the Video Game Awards show, and I think they do it at E3, or I'd say E3, but the Summer Game Fest. I think at those 2 points, the end of the year and the mid part of the year, I think they do hype up stuff like that. I think Gamescom is a big convention show over in Europe, in Germany, but it's not the place where people come out and like announce brand new games. It's coming to the end of the year, right? So it's games that are either about to launch and it's at that last hurrah to get them on the books, for the year and whatnot. So I don't want to take Gamescom as like they didn't have anything like massive, because there's games that I'm excited for that they showed, but nothing. It's not the stage to show like. Not that Grand Theft Auto would do it because they don't do those things, but a game like that type of caliber wouldn't show up at Gamescom, right? They would just do their own thing, or they would show up at Rockstar's a bad example because they don't show up at any of those things.
Right.
But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
A big company with a big hit, they're not going to come to Gamescom. They're going to show up at the Video Game Awards show at the end of the year, and they're going to show up at Summer Game Fest.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting prediction. Like, because Gamescom is the biggest in-person event now, with no E3. Biggest in-person event. Xbox seemingly really saw opportunity here. They said it was their biggest presence ever, their biggest booth. They had 40 playable games. There was Did you notice this? What do you think about this? I saw more PC Game Pass commercials than I ever have before. Not Xbox Game Pass, PC Game Pass. What do you think of that? I expect that. I actually think that's a smart move, but I thought that was That was very telling that there was a lot of Xbox marketing spend on PC Game Pass.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it for weeks now. I said that they're pushing Game Pass and they're trying to get 15 million, or the last number we know, 15 million Xbox Game Pass people are from computer. 15 million, right? That's more than half of what they have. 25 million is the last number they had. 15 of that is PC. They want to get in the PC market, hence why they bought Activision, right? Hence why they picked up Bethesda as well. Bethesda is a PC-known company, right? Same as Activision. So they're trying to make that move into PC. They're also trying to make that move into mobile market. So when you see a commercial now for the cloud or for Game Pass, it's doing three things. It's advertising Xbox, or Microsoft or Xbox. It's advertising the game that it's advertising, and it's also advertising Game Pass, right? And it's like a trifecta. So everything that pops up now of their first party titles is preaching, hey, we have Game Pass. They don't tell you to buy a console. They're like, we have Game Pass, right? You get the Ultimate on PC, and here's the game you can play on these things.
Yeah, and somebody in chat saying there was both. I wasn't trying to indicate they weren't promoting Game Pass. I was saying this was the most I've ever seen PC Game Pass promoted.
Europeans are very big on PC gaming, though.
Right. Well, and I wasn't surprised by it. This is actually something I was kind of anticipating because Phil Spencer, I believe he told the Brazilian regulators that, or maybe there was something discovered during the Brazilian regulators kind of looking at everything. The discovery was sort of made that they feel they've kind of hit saturation in Game Pass on console, and they see room to grow on PC. And I think we're seeing that play out because I do think you've got to win some of those PC crowd people. I think that's a hard nut to crack because of the Steam audience. Those people are, they're super loyal to Steam. They don't want to install another launcher. They don't want to go anywhere else. And I do think that's could be a continued barrier for Microsoft to be like, well, you have to use our storefront. You have to use our software. You can't use Steam. I think that's a big challenge. I don't know if they could ever broker any kind of a partnership with Steam because I don't think Steam has a lick of interest in something like Game Pass. That's just it's contrary to their business model of like, hey, we're here to sell games, not promote your sub-service.
Right.
You said in chat you have no loyalty to plastic boxes. Yeah, I made this. I made this analogy in a member stream recently. I said, I feel like people are playing this weird tribalistic game of Clue. If you've ever played the game Clue, you go into a room and you're like, I think it was Mr. Plum with the wrench in the library. And then they show you the wrench because, okay, it's not the wrench. Like somebody in the game has to show you, oh yeah, I've got the wrench card, meaning it's not the wrench. And for you to be like, oh, I know what it was. It was the candlestick. Well, people would look at you and be like, well, you're an idiot. You don't have enough information to declare that. And I feel like people do that while we're having our show here and, interacting on Twitter.
Yep.
They're like, oh, he said something positive about Xbox. He loves Microsoft. He's an Xbot. And it's like, no, 30 seconds ago, if you'd have been here, he was just saying he thought the Series S was a stupid decision. Like, that's called nuance. That's called being an adult, right? Thinking in more, shades of color about reality than just like, it's black or white. And it's like,
yeah, I don't talk like a caveman.
Right. And I feel like that's what I ran into. I got thrust into this by being against the Activision merger, being against consolidation. I have a history with it, both professionally in working for companies, but, my dad had experience with consolidation. I am, opposed to consolidation due to my own research, due to the own markets in America going through a bunch of crap because of consolidation. But that's what people did. They're like, oh, I got it. Yeah, he's against Activision Blizzard. He's a pony. Right? Yep. Like, it's like, well, no. I mean, you're taking one piece of thing like, oh, yeah, it's like that game of Clue. We're like, oh, it's a candlestick. And it's just something weird that I hope people just start to shed a little bit. Like, you can come into shows like this and conversations like this and not have to be like, well, Mike, every other week, Mike is apparently either an Xbox fan or an Xbox hater. It just depends on what the topic is. Like, if you look at the comments, it's, y'all look silly. It's like, he just has different opinions on different subjects than you. It doesn't make him a pony or an Xbot. My favorite.
I don't think that particular person was asking that. He just wanted to know. Question: are you loyal to the box or to developers? I'm not even loyal to developers, because being loyal to a developer would be that no matter what they came out with, it would be just gold, right? And
Yeah,
that's not how I watch movies. That's not how I watch TV shows. That's not how I play video games.
yeah, I see it very interwoven. Like I'll say it, and I say it all the time, that I want developers and publishers to make buckets of cash so that they keep making great games. Now, obviously, that's interwoven with, you got to have a great game. You got to nail it for it to sell well. Like Baldur's Gate 3 is a good testament to this, that when you deliver excellence, you are rewarded. I think this year, I really hope, sends that loud and clear message that if you build a very, very awesome and strong game, that you can make tons of money. And that's why I'm against the dollar menu gaming mentality. I think that's antithetical to what game companies need, which is they need lots of money. And I think the subservice model and the dollar menu gaming model, the dollar menu gaming mentality, is at odds with these game companies making tons of cash. Like, I think the relationship's imbalanced when you take that posture and that attitude of, well, I'm gonna wait for a sale. I'm gonna try and save some money. I'm not gonna play the game until it comes Game Pass. Like, you can be frugal. That's totally fine. I'm not faulting consumers for being frugal, but I think it's lopsiding the relationship because of the scope and the cost of these projects.
Right.
I don't see that being. It just doesn't seem sustainable. I see the model that Nintendo and PlayStation are continuing to maintain. I think that's far more sustainable long term.
Agreed. I like PlayStation's model of not day and date. Like I said a couple weeks ago, let it play out. Let the game make its money, and then put it out on the other systems, and then put it on your streaming service.
Well, chat, I still owe you 5 gifted members unless we scramble and get 7 more. And we need some likes. I haven't really asked for likes during this broadcast. Could we get 50 more likes? A ton of people enjoyed this show today. Show some appreciation. I also need you to follow 30 and Still Gaming. He's linked in the description below. And I'm going to be setting up the VIP stream for those that are at a VIP level. Don't forget, all members and gifted members, there's a stream tonight with my wife at 8 p.m. Eastern. Mike, you talked about, you got some stuff planned for Starfield. I know you do podcasts on the regular. Tell people what's going on and where they can find you.
So you can find me at 30 NSG. I stream Monday through Thursday from 10 o'clock in the morning to about noon Eastern. We cover news stories. I've been doing it for as long as Lono, 8 years. I've been variety streaming. And then at night, Monday through Wednesday, 8 p.m. to about midnight, we play video games, played lots of different video games. I go anywhere from, I played Fallout 76 this week to check it out. I played SnowRunners. I played, what else did I play this week? I played a football game called Legend Bowl, which is like an 8-bit Nintendo football game, which is pretty fun.
Saw that. Is it any good?
It's really good. It's really good.
It's kind of like Tecmo Bowl, isn't it?
Yeah, it'll bring that Tecmo Bowl back to you. Or I don't know if you ever played the NES football, which is it reminds me a little bit of that. That's an old Super NES game. But yeah, and then I do a podcast on Thursday nights called Generation X Gaming, which is a weekly podcast that goes over a few of the top stories from the past week, and we rant along the way. So check me out.
Yeah, guys, make sure and check him out. We overlap a teeny bit, but we also have nights and times where we don't overlap. Like if the Friday night streams with me, if you enjoy that, the Thursday night time slot is exactly the same. So there's a great, I think, commonality between our communities here. So, give 30 a follow. If anything, if you found stuff that he said today, like, I disagree with that, go tell him. Like, he like me, welcomes that back and forth and those disagreements.
Yeah, I also have a section where you can just talk to the wall because I don't care if you're one of those people. You know what I'm talking about.
All right, well, you guys got it to 99. I'm gonna quickly give you guys 10 because you deserved it. We need somebody to round it out, but I'm gonna make good on it, and then we're gonna go over to this VIP. If you're a current member or got a gifted member, you can go to the member page on this channel and click on your perks, change perks, or change membership level, and you could upgrade to VIP. At the very least, you could consider upgrading to Member Plus, and that is $1 more. And actually, that's what we need to do today. It's the last Friday of the month. This is supposed to be for Members Plus or higher. I actually need to change that. So you can upgrade to Member Plus for $1 and get access to this stream that we're about to go do. We let you guys come to one VIP a month just to kind of, I'm just trying to woo you, right? Upgrade to Member Plus. And I'll send this to all members as an announcement. Creature joins us. It's Unfiltered. Thank you, DK Baker, for rounding us out. We knew we could rely on you, DK Baker, for that. So all member pluses, it's $1. Upgrade for $1 if you got a gifted membership, and you can join us for this Unfiltered VIP stream, and then maybe consider upgrading later to VIP. Letting you in for $1 today just to see what you think. It's the last VIP stream of the month. So there's a link in chat. No plus people allowed. It's the last one of the month. Just chill. There's only like 100 of them anyway. It's not a monsoon of people, right? There's about 130 something. So click the link in chat. We're going to go ahead and redirect now. I'm going to start it up. Thanks so much for being a VIP member. If you're a VIP member, this is a weekly VIP stream. You might be a member plus. We are letting member pluses come in once a month to sample this stream, and it's the last VIP stream of the month. So if you upgraded for $1, check this out. And if you like it, you can bump all the way up to VIP. It's a $9.99 a month thing. Don't forget, all members, don't forget, Friday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, my wife and I are going to be hanging out tonight. We might actually take turns playing Armored Core. It'll be hilarious. We'll do that at the end of the stream. It'll be funny. We'll see if we can get past anything. I'm going to end the previous stream and bring everybody over. We'll see if we can get past a single enemy, right?